Live in studio, KTVU political analyst Brian Sobel. A lot of expectations going into not only the G20, but this face-to-face encounter between the two leaders. Would the topic of the 26th election come up? That was one question that a lot of people were wondering.
It's somewhere in there it had to have come up because obviously it's causing a lot of problems for President Trump domestically, and at some point in that meeting it had to have come up. But this is a very busy time. The G20, the group of 20, representing 85% of the gross national product of the world. That's why you have protesters there who are all getting together to talk about things, and it's a huge story. The president's speech in Poland, another huge story, very successful speech. So lots going on.
So people who don't know, why are these people protesting? Every time that the leaders meet like this, you see huge protests. And what is at the heart of these protests?
Well, I think basically it's an opportunity to, when everybody's gathered, to make their point. And their point is they're against industrialized nations, against oppression of the lesser nations in the world. They've got a whole agenda, and it's a mixed agenda. Everybody shows up for these things.
Right, global trade, climate change,
Yep.
North Korea, Syria, Ukraine. I feel here in the States, this face-to-face with President Putin is dominating the G20. Are we too concerned about the optics of the handshake, the elbow touch?
Yes, it's so distracting. Did he or did he not do well with Merkel? How was the handshake with Putin? Did the First Lady of Poland not shake Donald Trump's hand for long enough? You know, it just goes on, and yet we're not focusing on the substance, and that I think that's worrisome.
You talked about 85% of the GDP. I mean, do you think countries, I mean, the United States has always appeared to be kind of the leader when it comes to global trade. Do you think countries are now looking at themselves and going, do we really need to be, like, why can't we be aligned with the U.S.? Or maybe we take the lead when it comes to trade.
Well, I think
in this world.
I think there's an assessment process going on around the world with the new president, and that happens every new presidency. And so it's a good point. I think each country is taking stock of its own situation and saying, where are we in this mix?
You made me think of something. President Trump has been said to be unpredictable. How much does that factor into, you know, how the world leaders are going to try and get to know him and see maybe where he's heading on certain issues?
Well, it's a really good point, because when you don't know somebody, you have to take time to understand what their motives are, and in that, there may be an advantage for the president, because for example, the Putin meeting, this is their first face-to-face meeting. They've talked on the phone. Tillerson, the Secretary of State, knows Putin, but they don't know what to expect. So there's a lot going on. It's a very interesting time.
Yeah, I'd like to be a fly on the wall when he meets the president of Mexico as well.
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, on and on, yeah.
Real quick, with North Korea, is it okay to negotiate with North Korea?
Well,
does that come up?
Well, this is the most complex situation in the world right now. And so negotiation has to be on the table as one option. But the North Koreans don't seem to respond to anything but raw power. So it comes down, Mike, to the Chinese and the Russians really taking an active interest in doing something with North Korea, particularly China, because they have a huge trade situation with them. They can provide the influence.
All right, Brian Sobel, appreciate your time.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Coming up next.